as an ability, as a factor of ability, what is that you are capable of doing? When I talk about the foundation of an individual behavior, the first thing that comes to the top of the mind is the word called as ability. If you look at this ability, it is all about reasoning out what are the cause and effect for a problem. Good morning and welcome to the first session in Unit 2, where we are going to talk about an organization behavior, the foundations of individual behavior. Now, foundations, the word itself is so interesting. Why? Because whenever we talk about organization, we need to understand that the entire foundation of the organization are the people. So we are going to understand about the most intellectual resource of the organization, that's the human resources. So let's just go further and try to understand. So what is ability in organization behavior? Why? Because this is essential. When I talk about the foundation of an individual behavior, the first thing that comes to the top of the mind is the word called as ability. Ability is the current assessment of what one can do. Now look at that statement altogether. When you go and apply for a job in a company, the company first wants to know your ability rather than your qualifications. That's why we conduct an interview altogether. We want to know the assessment of your skills. We want to know what you are capable of rather than what you have studied or what you have accumulated altogether. So ability is a current level assessment. So when you go and say that I have a good communication ability, I have a good writing skills, I have good reading skills, I have good interaction skills, you are telling about your ability. You are telling that yes, I am capable of doing this job 100% guaranteed with success. So that is why ability matters a lot to the organization. From management standpoint, the issue is not whether people differ in terms of their ability. Why? Because this is one thing which is very, very important. The issue is not whether people differ from their abilities. They certainly do. Not everybody in the organization is a good communication leader. Not everybody in the organization has the same managerial skills. Not everybody in the organization is a good listener. But everybody has got some or the other ability. So that is what makes the organization survive. The collection of abilities focused towards a specific goal will make you to reach success. So why I say this is that this is the combination factor. This is where you need to know very clearly that abilities will make a man, will make the organization to perform. So when we know that they certainly do some abilities, they have it, the issue is knowing how people differ in abilities and using the knowledge to increase the likelihood of employee will perform well in his or her job. So what are we interested is that find out the strength. Most of you in your life would have done a very, very simple analysis called as SWOT analysis, which means to say strength, weakness, opportunities and threat. You do a self-assessment of yourself. Everybody is born with strength and weakness. Nobody is left alone there. Nobody is an exception. So everybody has got a strength, everybody has got a weakness. As an organization, my job is to focus on your strength. As an organization, my job is to identify your ability. Take you forward in that line so that your ability becomes my advantage, which means to say organization's advantage in terms of getting the job done, and we move together in the path of success. So what we believe here is the combination of strength. We know that there are hundreds and thousands of employees who work in an organization, each one of them having a different strength, different ability altogether. The collection of people, that's why we say unity in diversity. This is the real meaning. All of us have strength. All of us, when we stand united with our strength, with our talent, automatically we will make a difference in the organization. Now the next thing, what we are acknowledging is that everyone has strengths and weakness in terms of ability. That make him or relatively superior or inferior in terms of performing. Now what happens is that the moment you start understanding that a person has got some ability, now that ability, it clears a marked differentiation between people. Somebody is able to perform well when compared to others. Somebody is not able to perform to the expected level. So what happens is that ability creates a picture, a difference altogether. Now what does Stephen Robbins say here is that ability is an individual's capacity to perform on the various tasks of the job. The word perform is very, very important because you are just going to live with this world throughout your life saying that perform, perform, and keep performing. Performance is what counts. Unless you perform, you will not continue to exist. If you don't perform, you perish. That's the exact words that you need to learn when you are talking about the organization behavior. Performance is what any organization looks up in an individual. So when you talk about ability, the ability has to transform to performance. Sir, he is very good in communication, in reading, writing, but unfortunately, if you're not even able to type out an email properly, or you're not able to draft a letter properly, I think you are not matching your skills. What is very important is that it's not just the qualifications, it's not just the experience part that's going to talk about you. What is really going to talk about you is that how do you perform in the respective role, the task that is being given to you. If you are able to outperform, now I'm using the word outperform others by showing your talent, by using your ability, then automatically you reach the top performers in the organization. So this is why we call this as very, very important. When Keith Davis pronounced this statement, ability is the quality of keeping able to something, especially physical, mental, financial, or legal power to accomplish something. Now, this definition is quite complicated. Why? Because Keith Davis tries to say that it's a quality of being able to do something. Now, let me stop there. Now, let me not go into the financial, legal, or marketing aspects of that. When I say the ability to do something, that itself is what I'm trying to define. Because as an ability, as a factor of ability, what is that you are capable of doing? We are capable of doing 100 things. Not all the 100 things are going to be listed down on your resume, on your CV. Why? Because all those 100 things do not matter to the organization. What matters is the skill that is rightly required for the organization. If you're good in accounting, yes, you can join an auditing firm. If you're good in typing, yes, you can join a BPO which involves data typing. If you're good in communication, yes, you can join a media channel. So what I'm trying to do is match the skill and ability factor. If that match is there, rightly provided, you're in. That's what we want to understand here. We don't want to say, or we don't want to go about the factor, what and all you can do. We can do 100 things, but then what is needed for the organization? If that skill is available in you and it is matching, that's what will drive us to success. The next thing, Eliza McGall, a professor of psychology at the Wayne State University, once said, workability is not about whether people want to continue working, but whether they feel that they can continue working at their jobs. And look at this thing altogether. Now, it is not just about continuing working. Many people feel that once I get a job, okay, job security is there, settled. Typically, a government job in India. A government job in India does not test your ability. It only tests your experience. Over a period of time, the person gets promoted, he moves to the next level, there's a scale, there's a grade, there's a pay, and it keeps on going. At the end of 60 years, when that person retires from the government job, the question is on the intellectual ability. The question is not just on the 30 or 40 years of experience that the person has spent on the job. That's what exactly we want to say, whether people want to continue working. But the factor is that it is about, can they continue? It is not just about continue working. Okay, I've just got a job, I'll keep working for 10, 20, 30 years. No, that's not what. Are you feeling the factor that, yes, I will be able to deliver? That is a very, very important question that you need to do a lot of self-assessment. If that assessment is not done, then we are in trouble. Then the organization is in trouble. Why? Because just by doing a job that is being prescribed doesn't mean that you are meeting the standards or you are performing at the best. What makes you to perform at the best is that when you feel with your guts, with your intuition, with all your emotions, factors saying that, yes, I will be able to do it, come what may on my way. Let all the odds, let all the challenges come across, but still I will deliver up to the expectations. That is where you make to say to the organization that I am exceptional. This is what is needed in terms of understanding the ability. So you need to feel that factor that I will continue working in the role because I have the ability to perform. Now moving further, at last we can say that ability is a quality or state of being able, power to perform, whether physical or factor. I'm just going back to what Keith Davis said. Why? Because this is the most important thing. It's all about being yourself and performing what is needed for that particular organization. Now, the next thing is that it underpins and contributes to skill. Ability will contribute to skill, and it can be essentially perceptual, essentially motor, or a combination of both. Certain people have got a very, very beautiful skill called as analyzing power. Certain people have the beautiful skill of intuitive power. Now, I'm not trying to get philosophical in nature, but I'm trying to explain you the factor that the combination of skills. Certain people love numbers. Moment they open the Excel sheet, it's all about their own world. They know how to manipulate each and every cell. They know how to put a formula. They know to highlight the answer, and they can do that entire function in a flash of a second. But then there are certain people in this world who are averse to the word called as computer and technology. They don't like it. They don't want to see that screen. They don't want to keep typing on the keyboard, looking at the screen 20 times a day. What is very important here is that the combination, they might be good in something else. Moment they look into a person, they'll be able to read his face, they will be able to read his behavioral characteristics, come back and say that, yes, this candidate is good, this candidate is bad. So what is happening here, what's very important that we need to understand is that it is a combination of skill, a combination of the activities that are both physical and that are both emotional or mental in nature. So you have to understand that it's a collective power altogether. Ability is a collection. Then there are two types of ability, intellectual and physical abilities. Now we're going to talk about it. Why? Because this is a very, very important thing today in the organization. When I talk about intellectual, it's more about your mind. When I talk about your physical, it's all about your strength of the body. So I'm going to talk a relationship between body versus mind. Now that is the combination that we need to understand when we are studying the organization behavior altogether. Now, what is intellectual ability and what is physical ability altogether? Now, when you see at this photo, this is one of the simplest images that will tell you in your childhood days that, yes, I also wanted to be a Superman like that. I also believe that by being a Superman, you have all the abilities that you can take the world on your hands. But then, that's not the real ability that we are looking into. We have a classification altogether. So the first classification is intellectual. The second classification is physical ability altogether. Now let's try to understand what is intellectual ability. It is the capacity to do mental activities, thinking, reasoning, and problem solving. Right from the old days, ages old, I'm talking about, India is a country that has always stood for the intellectual thought. We are the founders of yoga, we are the founders of economics, we are the founders of chess, probably we are even the founders of all the science, including mathematics. Because we always believed the intellectual capacity is more rewarding, is more important, and that stands tall all the time. So we were never a people who always believed that physical strength is mandatory. We believed that intellectual capacity is mandatory. That's why we always emphasized on knowledge and learning. The ability to learn, the ability to understand, the ability to perform. That's what we always believed as an intellectual ability. And that's why when we say mental activities like thinking, reasoning, and problem solving, because these three factors are mandatory when you are a part of the organization. You can't escape from it. You need to be a problem solver, which means you need to find out the solutions, and you need to reason out why things are happening, reason out your behavior, and you need to have the capacity to think all the time. So intellectual is that factor. It commonly refers the ability measured by performance as an intelligence test. It is sometimes used in the context of discussing the performance of someone, academic, all the factors all together. I'm going to again stress upon this word intelligence because that matters a lot. Whenever people praise you saying that you are an intelligent person, you are happy. The reason is that they are not praising yourself, the portrayal image, they are praising your brain. They're telling you very clearly that you have the capacity to think and to react. So it's all about your intelligence altogether. Now, the next thing is that the 7 most frequently cited dimension intellectual abilities are the number, attitude, verbal compensation, perpetual speed, inductive reasoning, deductive reasoning, and memory. All these things have been told by our ancestors way back. Why? Because they always believed that the intellectual capacity is needed to solve or handle any situation. So we have always believed. Coming back, actually, there are 7 most frequently cited dimensions which we were talking about in terms of the attitude, the verbal, comprehension, perpetual speed, inductive reasoning, deductive reasoning, and memory. These are all going back to the same capacity of the intellectual abilities. Why? These factors are needed not only from the academic purpose, but also from the corporate angle, that is from your work angle altogether. Intellectual ability have got the 7 dimensions. Now, for example, let's look at those dimensions. The first one starts with the numerical dimension. What do you mean by the numerical dimension? The numerical aptitude, it's about doing that speed arithmetic. How many of us would have been really so happy about doing the speed max? Why? Because speed max is so interesting in nature. If you have that ability, really, you will be able to crack most of the government exams and the competitive examination. So definitely, this is a number 1 aptitude I would like to talk about. Followed by comprehension, the reading skills that we are talking about. It is where you can understand what is read and what is heard altogether. Another important skill, because once you have the capacity to read and to understand what is being given to you, it will be very easy for you to address the customer issues as well as the day-to-day problems. The next thing is the perpetual speed altogether. It's the dying ability to identify the visual similarities. Now, this is a very, very common test. If you happen to go through any kind of activities that involves competitive tests where they give you images to identify, to find out how the dimensions work, what kind of factors, how is the different changes altogether. All those things are being represented using this perpetual speed. So it's a very interesting concept where you will be able to find out the similarities, you will be able to find out how exactly things are matching. This is something like a match the following, but yet it requires a little bit of intelligence. It requires a little bit of thought process altogether. Inductive reasoning, look at the word itself, inductive in nature, which means to say that identify a logical solution or a sequence for a problem. And this skill is very, very important in the modern days. Why? Because if you look at this ability, it is all about reasoning out what are the cause and effect for a problem. Most of us know that there is a problem and that problem occurs on a daily basis or on a repeated manner. But we don't tend to understand the root cause for it. We tend to complain. We tend to go back and find reason to say that this problem is actually affecting my performance. But if you are a person who is going to apply this inductive reasoning altogether, that means you will be able to identify the problem, you will be able to identify the solution immediately, and you will be able to analyze what exactly is affecting it. So this is very, very important for us. This will actually actually help us to understand that situation far better. Followed by deductive reasoning. It's the ability to see the logic, assess the implication of the argument. So you need to see the logic, you need to assess the implication altogether. So you need to understand what is the outcome that we are talking about, why this outcome is coming out, and what are those factors behind it. So unless and until you are able to see that, you are able to understand it, you are able to go through it, you will not be able to present yourself. So I would always say that this deductive reasoning is very, very important because it makes you understand the outcome. Followed by special visualization. So you are able to imagine an object, how it would be, and you are able to present it. So imagination is a very big strength that has been given as a part of your intellectual ability, that makes you understand, that makes you think, that makes you work forward as a personality who will be able to bring in a lot of differences. So this is a rare gift, I would like to say, in terms of imagining what is the possibility. You are more of a person who can seek the future altogether. Memory, it's the ability to retain and recall the past experience. Now, memory is such an important skill in organization or even in our academics that people literally spend years in terms of gaining this memory speed. Right from our childhood, the one memory test that has always been daunting us is our tables. Whenever we learn this multiplication table, it was never easy for us in our childhood days. We used to memorize the mathematics. Why? Because we were not using the inductive reasoning skills at that point of time. What we wanted is just the answer. So we used to just mug up the answer. But unfortunately, our memory was never giving hand with us. So most of the time we used to fail in putting up the correct answer. So what happens here is that memory becomes a rare talent where you are able to retain each and every activity, each and every knowledge in your mind, and you are able to reproduce it. We are so short-term and short-lived in our memory that we forget what happened 2 hours back or even a half an hour back. The reason is that our brain doesn't want to store it and we don't want to spend time on the past. What we want is we just go with the flash, we go with the flow. We just see the data flowing, we just see the news that is being read, we just hear to what's going on, we listen to a music and we keep moving further. But we are not literally spending time in terms of building up our memory. But this memory is going to carry you forward to the next generation altogether. Why? Because with the memory skills, you will be able to do miracles. Suppose you are able to remember the 10-year balance sheet of your company. You are able to predict exactly the 10 years performance level. Imagine the amount of appreciation that you are going to get from the board members. Imagine that you are able to remember all the mobile phone numbers that you have on your mobile phone. Now, these are all, extra talent, what I'm talking about, which is definitely going to add on an appreciation factor for you. With that, these are the advantages. It's highly reliable, the intellectual capacity. The verbal reasoning and numerical test have shown the high validity for a range of activities, which is quite appreciable in nature today, followed by the validity rises with increasing complexity of the job, because more and more you start seeking the intellectual job factors, more and more people want you to think and apply that intellectual capacity, followed by the combination of aptitude tests which have higher validity because they want to see how you perform and how does the performance directly link you in terms of working. It might be administered in the group settings where many applicants can be tested at the same time. So you conduct an examination or you conduct a test which is going to actually take you forward, analyze it on the spot. How many people like you can solve the same question paper and excel? Now, scoring in the test may be completely based by computer scanning, so you don't have to worry. It is all preset. You just have to solve the problem and you get the answer. Lower cost than the personality test. Definitely yes. Why? Because when you start thinking about the other kind of activities that involve the personality, outdoor testing and other kinds of reasoning, this intellectual ability is one of the most important tests that can actually give you better results. Followed by With this, I would like to conclude this particular session, and I hope and believe that all the information shared through this resource, through this particular presentation, will be of a great help to you. In the upcoming sessions, we will be seeing more about the foundations of individual behavior. But until then, stay tuned, stay blessed, and stay enlightened forever. Thank you once again for joining me today on this wonderful session.